We'll do the Maamar Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah Shechali is b'Shabbos, which the Rebbe said on h'tsh Elul Tavshin Lamed Beis. That was the night of Erev Rosh Hashanah, Tavshin Lamed Gimel. In that year, Shabbos Rosh Hashanah was on Shabbos, so this was Thursday night, the night of Erev Rosh Hashanah, which is also the Yom HaHeledes, the birthday of the Tzemach Tzedek. And as it says in the note that they published later on this Maimer in the booklet in h'tsh Elul Tavshim Memtes. That year, Tavshim Memtes, was the 200th birthday of the Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek. And that was Rosh Hashanah Tavshin Nun, meaning the booklet, which was 200 years from the birth of Tzemach Tzedek, and it says there that before, in honor of Erev Rosh Hashanah, in which there is 200 years to the Tzemach Tzedek, which is from h'tsh Elul Tavkuf Memtes to h'tsh Elul Tavshim Memtes, 200 years. And also, this was for the Rosh Hashanah, which is coming that year. It probably was also on a Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah was Chaliz b'Shabbos, so they are publishing the Maimer of Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Shechali is b'Shabbos, and they say in this Maimer it also discusses the Maimer of Mashbi'in Oisoti Tzadik. The Alter Rebbe said this Maimer before the child is born. The Gemara says, as the beginning of the Tanya, we say, Mashbi'in Oisoti Tzadik Valti Rosh. So that was associated with the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek. That's discussed in this Maimer about that Shvuah, as it connects to the birth of Tzemach Tzedek. Erev. This is Erev of Tesel Toshim Tes when it was signed off on this booklet. So this Maimer is both Erev Rosh Hashanah because it's a Shabbos Shechali is b'Shabbos. It's a Rosh Hashanah Shechali is b'Shabbos, and it's also 200 years. They published it 200 years from the birthday of the Tzemach Tzedek, and it's special connection because the Alter Rebbe, before the Tzemach Tzedek was born, the Alter Rebbe gave the Maimer of Mashbi'in Oisei, which forms the basis of the first three prokim of the Tanya. In any event, in this Maimer, the Rebbe discusses the famous question, why is it that we took away the mitzvah of shofar when Rosh Hashanah comes on Shabbos? It seems like such a special big mitzvah, and with a small worry about people that may violate and carry in Shabbos, and in our days we don't even have a Reshus Harabim to violate a Torah prohibition. And we took away this great mitzvah, and the Rebbe explains that, as explained in the Maimorim, that the Shabbos is in it itself a level of Tainuk. The idea of shofar blowing is to bring down the Tainug of the Eibishter into the world. But even though the world originally created mitzad chofetz chesed, Hashem's Tainug came on its own, but now we need the avodah of shofar. But on Rosh Hashanah Shechali is b'Shabbos, Shabbos, because Shabbos is Tainug, we don't need to do the shofar. And in the Beis Hamikdash, they still did the shofar because there's a high level of Tainug. But the thrust of the Rebbe's question over here is going to be, it seems from the Maimorim, as the Rebbe will bring down, that a part is Avodah Sa'odom, that when the person works to bring down that level of Tainug, it's a higher level. So it turns out, even on Rosh Hashanah Shechali b'Shabbos in Musaf, we will still say the psukim, the psuke shofris, and that, but that doesn't seem to be the part which is really avodah sa'odam in drawing down the hamshacha, it's only to bring it down more in reality, more in gashmis, as the Rebbe will bring down. So it almost seems that while we also on Rosh Hashanah Shechal is b'Shabbos, we have the human, the person's input and saying the shofros, but it's not in the main part of Rosh Hashanah, which is to bring down the light from the highest level of Tainug. And the Rebbe will explain in the Maamar, in the end of the Maamar, the Rebbe explains, no, that the reality is that even in that Gilui, it actually lies there, the highest level of revelation in that part of Tikiyas, in that part of Psuke Shofar. So we're not even missing out the Avodah Sa'adam because the person is saying the Psuke Shofars. A lot of tremendous, beautiful insights in the whole Maimer. We'll go step by step. Be'ezras Hashem, we'll cover this Maimer. B'siyayte Deshmaya is ha'tsh Elul ha'tsh Lamed Beis, the 29th of Elul, the Tosh Lamed Beis, Leil Erev Rosh Hashanah ha'tsh Lamed Gimel. And this is the night, that's Thursday night, which was Erev Rosh Hashanah. Erev Rosh Hashanah was Friday, and this is the night of Erev Rosh Hashanah, that's Thursday night. Of the new year, at that time, Tavshin Lamed Gimel, that's when the Rebbe said this Maimer, and as I said before from the note, that the Maimer was published in Tavshin Mem Tes, which was 200 years from the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Maimer begins, Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah Shechal Liyos B'Migdash, B'Shabbos. That the day, the Yom Tov, the holiday of Rosh Hashanah that falls on a Shabbos. It means that Rosh Hashanah, the first day Rosh Hashanah, or Rosh Hashanah B'chlal, comes out on Shabbos. So what happens with the mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar? So the Mishnah says, the Migdash Hoyu Toikin Avaloi B'Medina. In the Beis HaMikdash, they would blow the shofar there. But Loi B'Medina, but not in the land, in the country, all over Yerushalayim and elsewhere, they didn't blow the shofar. At the time when if Rosh Hashanah came out on Shabbos, we didn't blow the shofar. Not because there is some problem with blowing shofar on Shabbos for some violation of Shabbos. Mefarish b'Gemara. So what does the Gemara explain there? Why? Why did they not blow in elsewhere outside of the Beis Hamikdash? How come we didn't do the mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar? So the Gemara explains the Rabbanon who the Gozurbei, that this was a decree that the Rabbanon decreed not to blow the shofar on Shabbos. When Rosh Hashanah, there's a mitzvah to blow the shofar, but if it comes on Shabbos, we don't blow the shofar. What's the reason? Says the Gemara, the hakoil chayovim b'tkiyas shofar, ve'ein hakoil b'kiyim b'tkiyas shofar. Because the obligation of blowing shofar is everyone's obligation. And since everybody has to do it, and not everybody is expert, knows the Tkiyah Shofar, doesn't know how to blow, doesn't know the exact, the length, there's a lot of details to knowing the shofar. So a person needs to blow the shofar. Everybody has to blow the shofar. And therefore, we worry. So what is the worry over here? Shemo yitlenu b'yodei v'yelech etzel haboki lilmed. Maybe he'll take the shofar in his hand, and he will go to somebody who is an expert to learn how to blow the shofar, or what's the right way to make the shofar. And what's going to happen if it's Shabbos and he takes the shofar to the expert to teach him? And he might pass it, carry it 4 ames in the public domain. On Shabbos, carrying in the public domain is a violation of the Shabbos. It's a Isur of the Torah to carry, it's Isur Skila to carry in the public domain. So on Shabbos, the Chachamim were worried if we're going to allow to blow, if we're going to say to blow the shofar, this person is going to, perhaps by accident, he will violate the Shabbos by carrying it in the public domain on Shabbos. So the Chachamim said, okay, when Rosh Hashanah is on Shabbos, no shofar. Regular week, no problem. You carry it. Yom Tov is okay to carry. But if it's on Shabbos, don't blow shofar at all. So we're not going to come to carry the shofar on Shabbos. So the question in this is no. Why did our sages of blessed memory see fit to push away a positive mitzvah of the Torah? The Torah says on Rosh Hashanah we have to blow the shofar. There's a mitzvah say, and now because it's on Shabbos and the Torah still says you have to blow the shofar on Shabbos, and the Chachamim pushed it away and they said no. And this is not just any mitzvah. This is a very special mitzvah. Befrat mitzvah shofar, she mitzvah rama v'nisomed, especially the mitzvah of blowing shofar. That's a very exalted and it's a great mitzvah. So why would the Chachamim push away such a mitzvah? And what the reason? Mishum gezeda ba'alma. This is just for some suspicion. It wasn't a real issue. You might come. Just something might happen, and you take away an important mitzvah because something might happen. And the Rebbe adds in the brackets over here that gezeda is still present. In our days, we don't even have a Reshus Harabim most of the time. So it turns out that maximum, what is the person going to violate? He's going to carry it in a Carmelis 4 Amos, which is Osur Midrabanon on Shabbos. So you're not even talking about a violation of a Torah halacha. And that impact of the Gezerah that the Chachamim made then impacts today as well, that when we don't really have a Reshus Harabim, so the chances of violating a Torah is even less, and yet the Chachamim still, it applies, we don't blow the shofar today. Befrat achshav. Especially now, she'ein motzu she'yeh Reshus Harabim min haTorah. It is not common that there should be a public domain, a Torah, the domain from the Torah. You need to have 600,000 people walking there. There has to be the right width and the right things. And the Alter Rebbe says in the Shulchan Aruch, we don't have a common today Reshus Harabim. So what is here the decree? Maybe you're going to carry it today. It's only not to come to a rabbinic prohibition, which in the Carmelis, the Rabbanan don't allow you. So if on Shabbos, by accident, you'll carry the shofar to the expert to learn, you'll be violating a rabbinic prohibition. So it seems like, why should we not blow the shofar today? The mitzvah has such a powerful mitzvah saseh. And in addition to that, people that make such mistakes are usually people who are ordinary and lightheaded people who don't really care so much. You don't make a mistake to carry on Shabbos, to blow the shofar, that's why. So it seems the Gam, the worry is for simple people and light people who are not so serious about Yiddishkeit, and they may mistakenly carry in the public domain or in the Carmelis, they may carry, forget to carry, but now we're not letting anybody do the mitzvah. How could they prevent the Rabbanon How did they prevent? Because of these some people who are Hedyot Mekali Hadas, that they might come to make a mistake, and they took it away. This mitzvah, Mekama Tzadikim Gedolim V'Tovim, from any great, big tzaddikim and good tzaddikim. How come they took it away from them? So the Rebbe says, "V'yadua habir bazeh." So it's known the explanation of this. That we know that the whole idea of shofar is to bring down Hashem's delight in the creation of the world, as the world is recreated every Rosh Hashanah. But since it's on Shabbos, this year Rosh Hashanah, when it comes on Shabbos, that delight is there because of the Shabbos. So the explanation is known in this. This that on Rosh Hashanah we need to blow the shofar. Who bichdei leoirer al yidei zeh lemaylo hatainug b'bris oilamos, is in order to arouse through our shofar Hashem's delight in creating the world. Hashem should enjoy. We elicit a tainug in creation. That's what the shofar is. But v'kivon shebishabes mitzad atzmo yeshnoi ha-tainug. And since in Shabbos itself there is already that delight, Shabbos is tainug. The Shabbos is a day, is Hashem's expression of delight. So when you blow shofar, when you don't need the shofar to create delight. The delight is already there. Shabbos yesh lataynu lachein b'Rosh Hashanah shachal liyis b'Shabbos. And therefore, when Hashanah comes on Shabbos, ha-mitzvah d'tkiya shofar eina b'teikav kol kach. The mitzvah of blowing shofar isn't with full force in kol hashturim, with the full storm, with the full force, energy, kimoy b'Rosh Hashanah, shechal b'yimei shavua, as in Rosh Hashanah if it comes on a weekday. In a weekday, we need the shofar to create the tainuk. It's very important. Over here, it's not that much because there is already tainuk. And okay, but the Torah is still required to blow the shofar. Torah doesn't say that on Shabbos you don't blow the shofar. That's from the Torah. But this impact of the shofar, that we want to create the tainug when it comes to Shabbos, is not with the full force, with the full shturim, the full emphasis. So therefore, v'lochein he nitchis mipnei achshash shemo yavirenu daled ames b'rishus harab, and that's why it is pushed away, because of the worry that you might transfer it, you might carry it for ames in the public domain, because on Shabbos the mitzvah, the point of the mitzvah is not so much there. So if we're going to say that it's not so much there, so how come we made a distinction? It seems, it's just it seems like this. The Torah didn't make a distinction, that we know. So we understand why the Torah didn't, because it's not the whole shturim, but it's still okay. We would understand. But the Rabbanon didn't care so much, because since it's not so important, so even for a smaller chashash, for a worry, the Chachamim still felt that they wanted to make a gzeira. But then the question becomes, so why did the Chachamim make a distinction? If you're already making a gzeira, then on Rosh Hashanah, that comes out on Shabbos, you shouldn't blow the shofar. So how come in the Beis Hamikdash you do blow the shofar? I mean, even though one can argue, I mean, again, that's my own input over here, but the Rebbe doesn't say this, but I'm just thinking simply that the once you made a gezeda not to blow the shofar on Shabbos because it's not so important for other places, why did the Chachamim make a distinction? Even though in the Beis Hamikdash you can argue, well, that's not, it says Hakul Chayovim B'Tkiyas Shofar, but in the Beis Hamikdash it's apparently over there it was more controlled. In any event, or maybe not. But the point here is, why did the Chachamim make a distinction? If they put it already and said that we don't care about the shofar and we push it off, why don't we make it just across the board? So he says, he explains, why did we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah that comes out on Shabbos? There's different levels in Tainuk when we say the delight that we want to bring down through the shofar. There is different levels of delight. But dargas hatainuk shimshichu al de'tkiyas shofar b'migdosh, the level of delight that they draw down through by blowing the shofar in the Beis Hamikdash, hinailis yoser medargas hatainuk the Shabbos, is a higher level than that step of delight that Shabbos brings in itself. Outside of the Beis Hamikdash, the level of Tainug that we bring down, the Eibishter's delight in creation, that we bring down to Kriyas Shofar, is equivalent to the delight that Shabbos brings on its own. But the delight in the Beis Hamikdash that comes through the blowing of the shofar in the Beis Hamikdash is a higher level of delight, which is not substituted by the fact that it's Shabbos. So over there you still have to blow the shofar. The shofar in the Beis Hamikdash is a lot more powerful to bring down a higher level, which Shabbos on its own can bring down. That's why it's not doicha in the Beis Hamikdash. However, b'Medina, where the drawing down of Tainuk through the actual blowing of the shofar is not greater, stronger, more than what Shabbos Tainuk just being a day of delight. So therefore, it's a small chashash. The sages were able to push it off. Okay, but the Rebbe asks, we see in other Maimorim, in Ois Beis, the Rebbe is going to explain. We see in other Maimorim that an important part of Rosh Hashanah is the avodas ha'adam, is the human involvement in drawing down the level of Tainug. If we're saying Shabbos provides the Tainug on its own, it turns out that you're lacking the input and the avodas ha'adam to bring down the level of Tainug, because you're not blowing the shofar, it's coming by itself. And the Rebbe explains further, even though there is still somewhat of a involvement of the person, because he says the Psuke Shofras in the davening, and the Psuke Shofras are the human, that's his involvement. But the Rebbe says, it seems that Psukim are not involved in drawing down the level of Tainug in creation. The Psukim are just bringing down what you have drawn down into practical, into this physical world. So what you draw down through the shofar, the Psuke shofar, the Torah oir that brings it down. It brings it down in a way that it illuminates, that it comes down to this world. But in the actual drawing down, seems like we're lacking the avoida, the human input. But the Rebbe will explain, no, in the end of the Maamar, that actually in this practical, we bring down even from a higher level. Let's look now step by step. Base. We need to understand how the Yedua, this is known, שבראש השונה צריך לעורר התענוג על ידי avodas ha'adam. Then in Rosh Hashanah, we need to arouse, we need to make the level of the Eibishter's Tainug, the Tainug increase. It needs to be through the human service, al yidei avodas ha'adam, which is Tkiyas Shofar. In other words, we see that's part of what Rosh Hashanah is, to have the human involvement in the Tainug of B'riyas Olam, because before Adam, before the world, there was Adam there before the human involvement. The creation came on its own, and yet the Eibishter doesn't want to continue the creation mitzad the Eibishter. The Eibishter wants a person to bring it down. Even though in the beginning of creation it came on its own, there was no human to bring it down. And still, we say Rosh Hashanah means to bring it down, the Avodas Adam. So why? Why does the person need to do it? Who? Ki al yidei shehahis oirus hatainuk del maila achshav who he al yidei avedosov shel Yisrael. Since the arousal now, how do we bring down the tainug of above? Not from Hashem. We bring it down. We bring it down through our shofar. So because it comes with Avodah Yisrael, the Yisrael hu b'ha'atzmus. The root of a yid is in the level of atzmus. So therefore, hatainuk shenimshav achshav, the level of the light which extends now through Avodas Adam, Hunai leyoser mehatainuk shenimshach mitzad atzmai mitchilas habriya. That is greater than the tainug that comes on its own in the beginning of creation. So, therefore, we have to bring it down because when we work at it, we bring down a higher level. So, based on this, you need the human, the shoyresh ha'atzmus, who has a shoyresh in atzmus to bring down a higher level of tainuk. So what happens? Rosh Hashanah shechali is b'Shabbos, or Rosh Hashanah in Shabbos, and we don't blow the shofar. Shatainug hu mitzad hazman the Shabbos. Over there, the tainug is because it's Shabbos, the time of Shabbos. It's not associated with avodas Adam, because as we know, Shabbos mekadshe v'kaima. Shabbos is holy and stays. It's every 7 day is Shabbos. From the day of creation, it's Shabbos. The human being is not involved in making Shabbos, as opposed to Yom Tov. Yom Tov, they have to be Mechadesh, the Levana, the new month, and it turns out that the Yom Tov is based on the Avodas Adam, human involvement over there. But in Shabbos, there is no involvement, it's Mekadshe v'Kaima. So it turns out that Chos and L'chayre, so then it seems like it'll be lacking. Mailas hatainuk shemisoira de Avodas Adam, the advantage of the light, of the delight that is aroused through the service of man. The person isn't involved. It comes because of Shabbos. It comes automatically. It's a holy day. The 7th day is Mekadshe v'Kaima is always there. Well, the Rebbe says, but there's not totally void of the human involvement, because a yid still, even though he doesn't blow the shofar, he still says the psuke shofars. So v'av shegam b'Rosh Hashanah shechali is b'Shabbos, even though that when Rosh Hashanah comes on Shabbos, yes, no ha'avodah, that midas psuke shofars, there exists that service of saying the verses of shofars in the Amida. We do the psukim from shofars. So that's the person saying in the Musaf, he says the verses of the shofars. So there is human involvement, not blowing the shofar, but saying the verse of the shofar. So the Rebbe says, "Harei amiras hapsukim hibirdei shaham shochati begilui." This that we say the psukim is not that we're mamshich. It says, as explained in Samach Vav, the Rebbe says that in order for the hamshocha to be revealed, you're mamshich through the shofar. And then when you say the psuke shofros, you're revealing it. So, but it's not that the psukim bring down the hamshacha. As explained in the Hemshech, the continuous Maamar beginning with Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah from the year Tofresh Samach Vov, the Hamshocha Shal Yidei HaMitzvahs Einoi Begil Kolkach. That when we bring down something through a mitzvah, in this case is the shofar. The shofar is a mitzvah. The mitzvah brings it down, but it's not so revealed. It doesn't come out in such a revealed manner. The Hagilui, the revelation of the Torah. The Torah reveals it. So shofar basically is the mitzvah that draws it down, but it's not revealed yet. And then we say the psukim, the Torah reveals that which the shofar draw down. V'agila de Torah, because Torah is called Torah Oir. Torah illuminates. Torah is light. It brings it down, reveals it. And therefore, normally we say the psuke shofar bichdei sham shochas hatainuk shal yidei kiyu mitzvahs tkiyas shofar, in order that the light that we draw down through the fulfillment of the mitzvah of blowing the shofar, tiya begilu, that it should come out revealed, huwa al yidei amiras psuke shofars. That is when we say the verses of shofars. And actually, so this explains, even though we said on Rosh Hashanah Shechal b'Shabbos we don't blow shofar because there is the Gilui Tainug. So why do we have to say Psuke Shofars? Because the Gilui Tainug that comes from Shabbos itself is also not revealed. The Torah reveals, makes the Gilui in the Hamshocha. This is the reason that even when Rosh Hashanah comes on Shabbos, we still say Psuke Shofars. Why do we need to say the Shofars then if it is all done from above? Even though that the drawing down of the delight comes on Shabbos on its own, this that is drawn down from the Shabbos itself is above. It's not revealed. It's not here in this world. There is Hamshocha above. There is a level of tainug in creation of the world. And in order for it to be the Gil Lamato, who al yidei amidas psuke shofras. So by saying the verse of shofras is to bring down and reveal. Is memela, since the involvement of the person is only for the revelation, not the hamshocha. So where do we have the avodas ha'adam in the hamshocha, which brings it from a higher place? The kivon shal yidei amidas hapsukim. Hurak Gilu Hamshocha. Since by saying the psukim it's only a revelation of the Hamshocha. But the actual what draws down the level of Tainuk, that's Shabbos itself. So it turns out that in the Hamshocha there is no human involvement. Harei, Rosh Hashanah Chali is b'Shabbos. So therefore, when Rosh Hashanah comes on Shabbos, Choser Lich'oira Ilu Shenasa Le'Aveda. So it seems that you're lacking that advantage that Avodah creates, that we said before. The Avodah brings a higher level of timing in the Hamshacha. Only the involvement of the person is here, is in the Gilui. So the question is, seems like we're missing something on Rosh Hashanah Shechali is b'Shabbos, that Avodah Sa'odam, which taps into a higher level of Tainuk. While the Avodah Sa'odam brings it to the Gilui, but it's lacking in the Hamshocha. Because as mentioned, the Rebbe at the end of the Maamar explains that even in the Gilui that the person brings down, it actually brings down even at a higher Hamshocha than the Hamshocha that comes from the Tainuk by itself, as the Rebbe will explain later on. But now, the Rebbe, to explain the various different levels where we're mamshich from, the level of tainug and the impact that we have on the creation of the world, the Rebbe is going to bring in from the Maamar that the Alter Rebbe said at the birth, at the first birth of the Alter Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek. So in that Maamar, the Rebbe discusses what happens when a baby is born. It says that you administer an oath, and the Rebbe will bring down that there is three interpretation in the words mashbin, which literally means an oath, but it also means it's being satisfied, soiva masbin, like with a sin, and also means like with a shavua. And the Rebbe explains how all of this connection on every Rosh Hashanah, Milmaila, we get, because Rosh Hashanah is the birth of man, Adam Harishon, and that's the time when we get that Shavua connected with the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek. But every Yid is technically born because we all have a spark from Adam Harishon, and that spark gets an additional infusion because before we're born, Mashbi'in, I say, and we get in all these three levels also the level of Shavua, which represents the deepest level of commitment as in a Shavua, as the Rebbe will continue to explain. Gimel. The Yuvan Behagdim Mashom Razal will understand this by introducing this that our sages of blessed memory said, Mashbin Oisoiti Tzadik Chulut. So the Gemara is the opening of Tanya that in the beginning, before the child is born, you administer a Shvuah to the child, to the fetus, to the baby that is about to be, to the neshama that is about to be born, and we tell the neshama to eat tzaddik, you should be a tzaddik, etc., and not a Rosh. So my father-in-law, the Rebbe, said in the name of Tzemach Tzedek, Asher Bereish Hashanah Rishoyna L'Chayov, that at the first year of his life, the Tzemach Tzedek's first year, Shnas Tov Kuf Nun, which was the year Tov Kuf Nun. He was born in Tov Kuf Memtes, but the first year of his life was Tov Kuf Nun. This was Erev Rosh Hashanah Tov Kuf Memtes, the first year Shnas Tov Kuf Nun. Omar Admur Hazokin Rosh, the Alter Rebbe, said a Maamar, so that means that first Rosh Hashanah after he was born, and the Maamar was Mashbi Noisoy Ti Tzadik, that we administer Ti Tzadik. So it's understood the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek took place then. So the Alter Rebbe said the Maamar was based on the pasuk, on the statement of the Gemara, that when a child is born, he gets the Shavua Ti Tzadik. And this Maamar is Ashloishes Prokim Orishonim Mishal Sefer HaTanya. These are the first three chapters of the book of Tanya. The Rebbe said, "V'yesh levair hashaychus the inyan mashbin oisoi l'Rosh Hashanah." He said on Rosh Hashanah, okay, he was born then, but what's the connection of the Shavua of Rosh Hashanah, which is given when a person is born? Rosh Hashanah is also a time of birth. Api hamevuer b'Likutei Torah. Based on what's explained in Likutei Torah, we'll understand why this Shavua is connected to Rosh Hashanah, because essentially Adam Harishon was created then, and every Yid is a shtickle Adam. Why are we called Adam? Because Adam Harishon, because we have a spark of Adam. So just like Adam was born then, our spark, every year it's renewed. We have a spark that's renewed, and we get that Shavua again, because that Shavua is given when we're born. So what does it say in Likutei Torah? The fact that every Jewish person is called Adam. Where do we see that? Because we say Atem Kruim Adam when it says the Gemara in Yevamis that a Yid is called when the Pasuk talks about Adam in the Tumah, Tara, other places, Adam is a human being. Over here, it refers to a person. Why is a person called Adam? Who lifi? So it says in the Torah, lifi shebenishmas kol echad mi Yisrael yesh chelek benishmas Adam Rishon. Because in the soul of every Yid Jewish person, there is a portion of the soul of the first man. He's Adam because of Adam Rishon. That's the first man. Move on. So from this, it's understood. The Rosh Hashanah, on Rosh Hashanah, which was Yom Broi Adam Rishon, Hashanah was created. The sixth day of creation was Adam Rishon was created. So the year repeats itself, so it's renewed every year. This idea of to bring down, draw down Adam Rishon in the body of Adam Rishon, that took place the very first time. When did it take place? On Rosh Hashanah. Every year it repeats itself, so we bring down again the soul of Adam Rishon in the body. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim, as the pasuk says, Hashem blew into the nostrils of Adam a soul of life. So it happens on Rosh Hashanah every year. Hashem blows in the neshama. It's a new life, a new creation. We have a soul of Adam. The Eibishter blows in anew, it repeats itself. So our birthday for each one is in Rosh Hashanah. So the Rebbe says that's why so therefore we can say this is the connection must be Noisel Rosh Hashanah. The Shvuah that we administer to be a tzaddik is when the child is born. So that's connected to Rosh Hashanah because we're born on Rosh Hashanah. And therefore it's mashbi'in, I say. So besides the fact that the Rebbe said the Rebbe was because that was associated with the birth, Tzemach Tzedek was born on Erev Rosh Hashanah that year, but it's actually directly connected to Rosh Hashanah. And the Rebbe says that it's not only because the Mashbi'in Oisoi, but actually Rosh Hashanah, which is in the 7th month, actually also has a connection to the words of Shvuah, to Mashbi'in Oisoi, because the word B'chodesh Hashvi and Rosh Hashanah is B'chodesh Hashvi has also the translation of Shvuah, according by the Medrash. Shvuah means a commitment. The Eibishter commits to the Jewish people in a way of a Shvuah through Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. This is sort of that connection, that bound. Yes, lekasher zeh. We can tie this in Pirush HaMedrash ala Pasuk with the Medrash interpretation on the verse. It says B'chodesh Hashvi, the 7th month. Shu says Shu Yarcha de Shavuos. It's a month of Shavua. Shvi, from the language of Shavua, it's an oath, a month of oath. Shvim lo Shavua. Ukemavur bedrusha Tzemach Tzedek. Hashaychus the Yarcha de Shavuos lemashbin oisoi. The Tzaddik, as Tzaddik explains in the Maamar, the connection of a month of Shavua to the Mashbi Noiseti Tzaddik. So this Mashbi Noiseti Tzaddik that the Gemara says, and that is associated with the birth of a child, is connected to the Shavua of Rosh Hashanah Shvi by the Medrash, as explained in the Maimorim of the Maamar Tzemach Tzedek. But the Rebbe says, "V'ula yesh lehoisif." Perhaps we can add to it even more, that it's not only the Shavua, but we have actually 3 interpretations in the words of the Mashbi. B'chodesh Hashavi Gimel Pirushim. It's 3 interpretation in the word Shvi. Shvi Kipshute is 7. And the Rebbe will elaborate about it later on also. And Shvi Meloshin Shvua, as we're saying from the Medrash, Yarcha de Shvuosukinal, it's a month of Shvuos, of that commitment, that oath, the connection. And also Shvi Meloshin Soiva. Shvi is also satisfied. It's saturated. It's a month which has satisfied with a lot of great things. The Medrash tight Shvi Meloshin Soiva. The Pirush B'Chodesh Hashviyu. What is the meaning of Chodesh Hashviyu? Shu Muzba B'Koil. It's satisfied as everything. Gitois B'Soicha, the wine. It's everything is prepared from the grapes, and they press them before, and comes the Yom Tov of comes the seventh month. Everything, the wine is in there. But the bracha is B'Soicha. There's many blessings in it. So we see that the word Shvi, the Chodesh Shvi has Shvuasa, literally it's an oath, literally 7, and also satisfied. Similarly, we also say about when it's a Ma'bir Tzaddik, Shemavur Bekama Mekoimis, which in many places explained. V'gam b'derusha HaTzemach Tzedek, also in the Maimonides Tzemach Tzedek, the b'mashbin Gimel Pirushim, that there's 3 interpretation in Mashbin, also the same thing. Mashbin, Kipshute, literally, it's a Shvuah, you administer an oath. V'gam Meloshin Soiva, it also has Mashbin, Meloshin, Masbin, you satisfy, you give it satisfying to the Neshama. And also Meloshin Shiva, also from the Lashon of Shiva Kedel Kamon, a Rebbe will bring down the Sfiras HaYisoid comes as the 7th from Bina, as explained later on.